Friday. Happy mother-loving Friday. Welcome to another episode of the Uncorked Poetry Podcast with my guest today, Mwalim. I think everybody knows you. I feel like you know absolutely everybody. But for those who don't know, let me go down his resume right quick. So resume. So Mwalim Daphunkee Professor. It's a fun thing to say. So he is a multi-award winning storyteller and musician. His disciplines are music, theater, literature, and film. He's a member of the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe and a product of the Bajan. I always say it wrong. I'm so sorry. Bajan immigrants. Bajan. My apologies. Mwalim was born in the Bronx, New York, and raised in the Bronx and Mashpee. He is a recording artist in the genres of jazz, soul, and house music. He is a 3-time New England Urban Music Award for jazz and 2-time winner of the Silver Arrow Award for dance, music, and jazz. What? First of all, I'm pretty sure that you have not slept your whole life because that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it does take a minute or two.
Yeah, and that's not even close to, all the things you've done. You've also taught in colleges, middle schools, high schools.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That was the fun stuff.
That was the fun stuff. So I have a lot of questions for Mwalim today, and he and I go way back. But one of the questions I always wanted to ask you was, what was the first instrument you picked up, and do you still play it?
The first instrument I picked up. Well, the first instrument I picked up, I would have to say, would be the piano in my mother's living room. Mm-hmm. And I guess you could say, more like played at it or banged on it, and then really played it at that point. Mm-hmm. But I guess the first instrument that I actually tried to really learn and play was the viola. When I was in middle school, when you get to orchestra class, I actually wanted to play the bass.
Oh my God, that's huge.
But the teacher needed more people who could handle the bigger instruments. So he sort of tried to then put me between. Okay, well, you have the cello and you have the viola, and I kind of went more towards the viola. I kind of liked the way that sounded better.
Yeah.
So that. And the funny thing was, so I played the viola all through 5th grade, and then I actually didn't make it into the orchestra the first time out. And but I ended up taking private lessons on it, and then got into the orchestra. And when I graduated middle school, I actually won the medal for music.
Nice. Is that kind of like a blueprint for your career and for your music? Maybe you start something, you're not the best at it, you bust your ass, you make it. A lot of people stop at not good at it. What keeps you going? What keeps you getting from A to B? What helps you get from A to B?
I'm not afraid to be bad at something. If I'm interested in it.
How'd you learn that?
And it's everything I'm good at. I don't know if I so much learned it as much as I just it's just, I guess, an aspect of my personality. It's if it's something I want to do, I'm going to figure out how to do it.
Nice. Has that been
I guess that's the tie together of all of it.
I apologize for the delay.
Oh yeah, it's just it's sort of it's kind of like a matter of just really figuring it out. And sometimes for me, even figuring it out becomes the fun, because sometimes he was getting a call.
There you go.
All right, I'm back now. Sorry, I was suddenly getting a phone call.
Don't they know you're busy? Oh my
gosh. Sometimes they don't care. Sometimes they don't care. Excuse me, allow me to consult with my personal assistant. Excuse me, personal assistant. If you would call Aisha and let her know I'm on a meeting. But anyway, I'm sorry.
No worries. So when I put up the post, I asked the audience if they had any questions for you. And talking about your love for music and how you started reminds me of Rachel's question. Rachel Devaney, any of you who don't know her, go Google her, go follow her on all the socials. She's absolutely amazing. So Rachel said, when did you first know that music would be such a major part of your life? And when did that drum start beating? So when did you find that music part of you?
It was always there because
Mm.
you come from a music family.
I
My
didn't know that.
mother sang opera.
Mm.
Yeah. My mother sang opera, but was also like huge soul music fan. So like a lot of the records that influenced the Groovalatos are actually from her 45 collection. Um, a lot of what's behind the music I started playing. And my grandfather, that is her father, he was actually a band leader and arranger and record producer
Mhm.
in the 20s, 30s, and 40s and 50s. And he had come here from Barbados, and he was actually classically trained and came to this country and discovered, there's no such thing as a black classical pianist. So he retaught himself jazz and started doing arrangements for Decca Records and production for Decca and Southern Records, but then also did some arrangements for Count Basie and a few of the other major bands, and led his own band for a long time. And he actually refused to play the Chitlin circuit. So the furthest south he would go is Pennsylvania. So his main area was actually sort of like the Catskills in New England and New York City and Jersey and Pennsylvania and so forth. But so those were things that were always present in the house.
Mhm. So
Um,
I was listening to some of your new music, and from some of the music I already know from you, um, you know how to scat. So how did you learn how to scat, and how do we bring scatting into, um, I guess, new age music? Like, how do we bring it back? And how'd you learn how to do it?
I kind of sort of taught myself, and a lot of it was
Damn it!
singing instrumental parts.
I'm sorry. I just
It's you're no problem, no worries. It's like you're trying to figure out a trumpet melody, so you're saying to yourself, and you also realize sometimes with the words, the syllables or the palatables as they call them, it helps you shape the tone.
Mhm.
Like it's easier to get a nice oh, you shake it with oh, as opposed to an ah, or something like that.
Mhm.
So scatting is sometimes just really shaping the tone so that you're getting out of it what you're looking for. And then, of course, listening to a lot of your scatters, listening to Ella Fitzgerald. And a lot of people don't realize this, but one of the baddest scatters to ever do it was Popeye.
The Sailor Man?
If you ever watched the Popeye cartoons,
Yeah.
yeah, Popeye the Sailor Man. Skeet, skeet and scat and skitty da do but didn't need it got skitty da ding da da skeet scat skitty da scat skeet 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 scat skitty da skitty da. He's doing that all through the cartoons.
Yes, he is. I never even noticed. Holy shit balls.
So yeah, I guess I can say Popeye was a bit of an influence in scatting also.
That is so damn interesting. Um, when you write a
And
song, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, but to answer the second part of the question, one of the things I've noticed with music,
Hmm.
they've gotten people away from music that requires any level of critical thinking.
Mm.
Like
What do you mean?
when was the last time an instrumental was a hit?
Oh God, I would have to say like, nope, not even that. Maybe the Titanic soundtrack, but It was the whole soundtrack, not just one song. I can't think of one.
And the radio hit it with Celine Dion.
Yeah. I think that's what drove it
The
up.
last
Wow.
the last time there were instrumental hit records would have been the late 80s. You had Kenny G's Songbird, you had Herbie Hancock's Rocket, and you had that tune from Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. And those were your last instrumental hits when you think about it. But the thing about it is, instrumentals, you have to think there has to be some level of engagement to actually take in an instrumental record.
Hmm.
So when you think about that, now, interestingly enough, they kind of sort of have scatting going on,
Hmm.
but we call it mumble rap.
No, don't. Oh God, I hate mumble rap. Mm. I can't stand that shit.
I, I'm sorry. I just had a good time messing with people online and watching a whole bunch of old heads lose their mind. And I said this because I knew they were going to lose their minds. But I said, if y'all listened to Das Effects back in the day, you got no beef with mumble rap. It was like,
Y'all heard what he said, right?
and people were losing it. People were losing it. And talking about, but you could understand every word. Yes, you're right. Bum skiddly, bum skiddly, bum bum. Yes, and and allow me to say this: Das Effects cassette lived in my car when it came out. I killed that cassette. It popped like Notorious B.I.G. said till the tape popped.
Yes.
I replaced it with a CD. but but no. So I love Das Effects, but at the same time, I have to go back and say, yeah, I can't really. It was dope, it was dope, but but by the same token, as I'm there laughing at Cameron with "I sloop your slaboopity and boop your papoopity," I'm like, "Skeelia wah wah wah, schoolia wah wah wah." I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember when Kanye came out with that scoopity whoop whoopity poop song? And everyone's like, yo, that's tight. We were just like, y'all heard the same shit we heard, right? Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sad. Sad. Um
yeah. I well, not everybody understood Sketches of Spain or Bitches Brew when
bitches.
Miles dropped those.
Word.
Not everybody understood those.
True.
That doesn't mean that I don't think what Kanye did was garbage, but not everybody understood.
Don't mean it's garbage. Maybe we just saying get it. Maybe that's it.
It- no, I'm saying it doesn't mean that it's not garbage, but not all of us got Bitches Brew when it first came out.
True.
Not all
True.
of us got. Not all of us got. Not all of us got Sketches of Spain when it first came out. And I'll be one of those to say I ain't get this shit either. I think it's garbage. But it might be something that's beyond me. There might be some musical element that is just beyond my capacity, and I'm okay with that.
Hmm. And that's all right. It's fine. You know?
I'm willing to be on the wrong side of history about the artistic genius behind that record.
Okay. Okay.
You know, I will be on the flat earther side of that. I I I will be on the side of the people who believe the moon landing actually took place.
But it did. Never
I
mind. Never mind.
I will be I will be on the side. I will be on the side of people who don't think it was a good thing that they informed black people 2 years late that they were free. Who does not see that as a reason for celebration. I'll be on that wrong side of history. I mean, think about that. Think about somebody. They suddenly realize they kept somebody in prison 2 years too late, so they bring him a cake and balloons.
Damn.
You
Lord
know
have
what,
mercy.
Junie? We realized you were supposed to get out of jail in 2018, and you know what? It's 2020. Here's a cake and balloons. Happy
No frosting.
Juneteenth.
No frosting. Just cake and balloons. Just a dry
Oh,
ass cake.
oh man, you know, and you know, and let's think about it. All right, Asian people, we're gonna give you an anti-hate bill. Black people, we're gonna give you an irrelevant holiday.
Good. Okay. Listen, people, let's talk about this shit for a minute. Okay. I'm not saying that having an anti-Asian a bill is the bad thing. You deserve that. You should have that.
No.
In addition,
Yes. I'm saying we need it too. We
exactly.
need it too.
How is
You know what?
wonder?
You could have given them. You could have given them an anti-Asian hate bill day and like celebrated, Asian Awareness Week, giving them an Asian Awareness Day. You could have given them both. It could have been an and, not an either or. Instead, they treat the shit like a game show. And Asian people, you win an anti-hate bill. And Negroes, you win a holiday.
It's a
You
lot.
win another reason for your white employers to resent having to pay you. It's like all of those businesses that decided, you know what, we're going to now call it Native American Awareness or Native American Day instead of Columbus Day, but it's no longer a paid holiday. You had a number of companies that did that in the same stroke.
You bitch asses. That's
When it was Columbus Day, it was a paid holiday. Now it's Native American Day, but it's not a holiday. But it's not a paid holiday. What?
If that ain't the most American shit I ever heard in my life.
The Whitey Game Show is all I can say for that. Yes.
I have several more questions, but before we go into any more questions, can we hear one of your pieces, whatever you feel comfortable sharing?
Oh, well, what do you want me to share?
Okay, you need a band for that, so never mind. Something. I guess we were talking about something inspirational. Nope. Take that back. We'll say that for later. How about something kicking racism in the teeth?
Something kicking racism in the teeth. I would need a band for that too.
I know. That's so hard. Whatever you want to share.
Whatever I want to share. All right. I'll do the piece from Away with Words.
Oh, cool. Okay. I'll listen up.
All right. Okay, so when we speak of conspiracy theory, the first conspiracy theory that we have to embrace is being a conspiracy theorist to begin with. Because you see, conspiracy theory oftentimes is just a way for us to work our ways around acknowledging that we might have just fucked up. But no, it might not simply be that we fucked up. We have to blame it on somebody else. There has to be some deep, dark secret behind it. Well, you know what? There is a deep, dark secret behind a lot of it. Let me tell you how that deep, dark secret kind of flows. Well, you see, at one point you had a bunch of people who tried to break away from people who they said were oppressing them, when in reality they weren't oppressing them. They were just telling them, no, we find your thoughts oppressive. But they were claiming that they were oppressed. So that sort of started a way of thinking. Claim victimhood when you're the one actually oppressing people. Well, anyway, so those people all loaded into a boat and came over here and found other people who they decided to oppress because they were brown, spoke differently, thought differently, and did not worship as they saw it the same God. Or at least that was the excuse they used, just to claim why they were superior. Now, that's not a conspiracy theory, but it is in fact a conspiracy that they pulled off, because later on they came over and started introducing laws and deciding through some doctrine, otherwise known as the principals or the prince or the papal bulls, documents that came from the church that first said that if you were a Christian, you had rights over other people. They reinterpreted to say that if you were white and a Christian, you had rights over other people. So the interpretation of the papal bulls, otherwise known as manifest destiny, is what they used to spread. Now, that was the conspiracy, and that was the conspiracy theory. Now, we can say it was a conspiracy, and we know that it's not a theory, because a theory is something that only exists in thought. But we know it exists in reality because it's actually on paper. You have the right to take their land. That was the conspiracy. So the conspiracy kind of spread, and it spread even deeper. Now, later on, we started finding secret societies. Now, the secret societies, if they were telling the truth, were actually tracing their roots back to Africa. They were tracing their roots back to Egypt. They were tracing their roots back to Palestine. They were tracing their roots back to the strips of Northeast Africa. And then in tracing these roots, they then decided to cover it up. And in covering it up, they turned it into something known as the raids. The raids. Now, again, conspiracy. The conspiracy was that we're going to leave Europe and go back to Africa. Now, yes, I did say that, back to Africa, because if you were royalty in Europe, that meant that you traced your roots back to Africa. Yes, that is what the royal line and the royal lineage is. Now, conspiracy is erasing that fact. Now, again, the raids, the raids, the raids. They talk about how they were actually going there to spread Christianity, but really they were going down there to find all the information, because they knew that's where the facts and the truth were hidden. The raids, the raids, the raids. Now, they've had windmills in Egypt for thousands of years, but for some reason they try to say those came from the Dutch. But we know that the Dutch went down and discovered them during the raids, the raids, the crusades, the raids, the crusades, the raids. It was not a crusade, it was a raid, and it was a raid of conspiracy, whereupon they stole documents, they stole what they thought were secrets, and they brought them back to Europe. They brought them back under covered, they brought them back under covered wagons, they brought them back under skull and crossbone, they brought them back under lock and key, they brought them back, and they called themselves Freemasons. Now, they wanted to say they were Freemasons, and really what they were what the big secret was: we worship black people. We worship black people. We worship black people. That's what the secret really was. I know this because I happen to be a Freemason. And guess what? They're really nice to me when I show up at their lodges. Conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory. Now, you see the forward motion when they talk about the Masons who look like us. There always were Masons who look like us. Some of us were called pharaohs. Conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory. The raids. The raids. Removing the conspiracy theory, take it back and forth, take it back and forth. Now, a man called Prince Hall, he was a leather tanner. He decided that, if black people are going to get a fair shake in this country, in this land, in this white supremacist field, we're going to need to have allies. So we need to build allyships with other people outside of this system. Now, this system won't let people who look like us in, so we find our way in otherwise. How do we find our way in? Through our cousins. Oh, I'm sorry, the Irish. The Irish. The Irish. The Irish who had their leg under the British. The British. Out in Castle William Island, 15 black men became Masons. When the Irish left, they left them with a warrant. And that was the foundation of African Lodge. Now, the conspiracy theory. The conspiracy theory is about Masonry. No, the conspiracy theory is not about Masonry or Masons. It's about how the knowledge is used. That is the conspiracy. Now, when we build our institutions, when we use that information to build our institutions, because that's what a Mason does, they build. When you build your institutions, that's against the conspiracy theory, but people are going to try to say that's part of the conspiracy theory. They twist the thought around because conspiracy theory is about drag and drop thinking. It is not about the critical process. It is not about the tool. It is about arguing about the gun without recognizing how is the gun being used or where is it being pointed. Conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory is when we turn gangsters into criminals instead of turning them into warriors. Conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory is when we turn our doctors and lawyers into street hustlers. Conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory is when we turn our teachers and our priestesses into hookers. Conspiracy theory. That is the conspiracy theory. When we talk about stocking the prison system, when we talk about breaking down amendments to turn prisoners into the slave population, that means that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It only changes form. Conspiracy theory. Let's look in the real direction of how things are taken. We want to argue about racism versus race prejudice when the real problem is white supremacy. And who's leading that argument? White people. Conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory. We want to talk about the problems with white men. Well, who are raising those white men? White women. So who's the real keeper of the problem? Conspiracy theory. Why are we blaming it on the white men? Why aren't the women changing shit around? Conspiracy theory. So we want to talk about conspiracy theory. Here's the conspiracy. Take responsibility for your shit.
Ooh-wee! What I tell y'all, come get this lesson. Y'all come get this lesson. God damn. Okay. So, is the name of that piece called Conspiracy Theory? Or is there another name?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, it's conspiracy theory.
So many things. So many things I'm going to talk to you about. Okay. So, Freemason. I didn't know that you were a Freemason. My Aunt Medea is a Freemason.
All right.
So, I didn't know that Freemasons came from Africa. I really didn't. I honestly didn't know that.
The entire legend is set in King Solomon's temple. And where is King Solomon's temple?
Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Where the facts and the truth are hidden. God damn it. So, secret societies. You were talking about secret societies, and then you mentioned skull and cross and bones or skull and bones. It's skull and bones, right?
Skull and crossbones, right?
Yeah, skull and crossbones. So I assume that was intentional. Why do you think, other than power, we had secret societies at a time when white people pretty much had all the power? Why did they need a secret society?
And you just said it, because they had all the power, so we had to move in silence. You see, the funny thing was, I was one of those people who was like, oh, Masons, they're evil, they're this, they're that.
Yeah.
And then it was all when I started doing some research on David Walker. The, David Walker, who wrote The Appeal. And as I started doing the reading, I'm like, okay, why do I get the feeling because I would keep stumbling upon Prince Hall and the Black Freemasons in the United States, and that you had this whole branch of Freemasonry that Black people started because they weren't accepted into the white side, and this is the only country that had racially segregated Freemasonry. And as I started looking at sort of like the who's who of who was shaking shit up during the 17 and 1800s, I begin to find this common thread of they're all members of the African Lodge. We talk about Absalom Jones, who formed the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Well, he was also the co-founder of African Lodge 459B in Philadelphia. When we learn about, Absalom Jones was the founder of the Free African Society. I'm sorry. Richard Allen was the founder of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, both of whom were the founders of African Lodge 459B in Philadelphia. When I start looking at, Lewis Hayden, when you go on the Freedom Trail walk in Boston, they talk about his house where he was hiding slaves in the basement and had a tunnel that led to Boston Harbor, and the kegs of dynamite he kept under his front porch. Well, come to find out, he was the Grand Master of African Lodge at one point. So then when I'm reading about David Walker, I'm like, okay, and David Walker and the Appeal, I'm like, okay, he had to somehow be tied into this. I come to find out that the original publication of the Appeal was done by the African Grand Lodge in Boston. They published the original booklet and made an arrangement with white Masonic sailors to distribute the book down south. So African Lodge was behind David Walker and the publication of The Appeal. And for your viewers who don't know The Appeal, it's a free publication. You can download it from the internet, check it out. You're welcome. Anyway. And then I'm looking and I'm like, okay, Marcus Garvey, Prince Hall Mason. So I'm like looking and I'm connecting all these dots. I'm like, okay, historically, there is something to this.
Mm-hmm.
And I come to find that, yeah, contextually, what we know as a secret society, again, just looking at it in context, this becomes the building blocks of what we now know as the university, what we know as the library.
Congress?
Because, you know, we have to think of, no, library in general. Any well-stocked library at a university or well-stocked public library in a good town, Falmouth, Falmouth, or Boston, Boston, or 42nd Street, New York, or Schaumburg, 135th, you know, any well-stocked public library.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we have to look at is the fact that the words sacred and secret are of the same root.
Did you hear what he said? Did you hear what he said? That sacred and secret are the same word. My God. Let's talk about that for a second. So, sacred meaning, I guess, not to be touched. Secret, not to be found. Yeah. That is, Okay, so my question is, one, how'd you find all this? Two, how do you remember it all? Along with everything else that you remember as a performer. How do you keep everything together? Because you constantly teach, which is important. I appreciate it. I'm sure everyone else who's learning from you appreciates it. But how do you keep it all together?
I just kind of find how it all connects.
Mm-hmm. And then just follow.
I visualize it. I guess if you were going to visualize it, it would be a spider's web. Because if you think about history, it's all interconnected. It's all tied together.
Mm-hmm.
And well, it was when I wrote my novel, Land of the Black Squirrels.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things, and I chuckle when I read this criticism, because I was like, you fragile millennials, no, because no, because I wrote the book purposely. I wrote it out of chronological order.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote it in what I call emotional order.
What do you mean?
When we have memories are often triggered by emotions or a feeling that somehow relates to how you felt when that might have happened. But memories are triggered, and memories are triggered by the experience that's happening at that moment. So how I wrote the novel was, what happens at the end of a chapter triggers what happens in the next chapter, and it might be the future or it might be the past.
How do you know?
You don't. That's why in one chapter you're in 1969, and then the next chapter you're in 1955, and then the next chapter you're in 2016. And then in the chapter after that you're in 1980. It's because this is how the human brain processes.
Mm-hmm. For all of you who are interested in his book, here's the Amazon link to Land of Black Squirrels, Bronx Bohemian novel. So make sure you guys pick that up. And I will put this in the chat for the podcast, so don't worry about it.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, I want to keep talking about this, but I have so many different questions. Okay. Is there a time when let's talk about men for a second.
Okay.
A topic I know very little about. I have a father and 4 brothers. Know a little bit. How do you think we as Cape Cod society should address toxic masculinity, and how do we teach our boys to embody and respect masculine and feminine energies?
Hmm. It's, how should I say, it's an interesting fine line.
Mm-hmm.
Um, having, and it's funny, not necessarily because of the native side of my family, but having always sort of had an understanding of two spirit and recognizing the concept of two spirit, there's that interesting fine line of knowing, okay, this is masculine, this is feminine. Yes, there are, we've always had concept of yin and yang,
Mm-hmm.
positive, negative. So yeah, there is, we even recognize in terms of physical biology, there's man and there's woman. But now there also becomes the spiritual factor and there becomes the emotional factors that sometimes work against the physiology of it all.
Mm-hmm.
That's really where you come with the two spirit. So toxic masculinity oftentimes comes out of the insecurity
Mm-hmm.
of who you are.
Yeah.
And it's very much along the lines of how homophobia is actually more like a symptom of actually being being repressing your own homosexual feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So so this is where this is the part that makes it toxic. Toxic masculinity is oftentimes, sadly, the result of sexual trauma that's been forced on men as boys, and them trying to reclaim what was stolen from them. That can shape an aspect of toxic masculinity or shape the mindset for it. If somebody was interfered with as a child by a grown man who was somebody they were supposed to trust, and they grow up to be homophobic, can we say they're wrong? You know, they were this is somebody who was traumatized. So this is what they're associating. But do we ever address that? That this is trauma, that this is a reflection of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the problem is we don't we don't we and again, this is not at all trying to excuse anybody of responsibility for their behavior or for the results of them embracing and enacting on toxic masculinity. But at the same time, we sometimes have to look at the root of what led to this,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and in raising, and also part of toxic masculinity is that we're taught as men not to talk, not to feel, not to reflect how we feel. Um, that is, so therefore we end up with all of this bottled up sadness, rage, etc., etc., etc. Well, that's going to poison you. So we have to raise our boys, raise our men to be able to express themselves beyond anger or outside of what we see as macho. We have to raise our boys and our girls to understand that, yeah, there's sometimes a part of your spirit that speaks differently or has you speaking differently. So this has to become part and parcel of our training.
Yeah.
Because you think about it, a giant part, one of the things that I often have to point to is a giant part of concepts about men and women actually come from our mothers. And think of when I think about how many times I've heard young boys being belittled, berated, and emasculated by their mother, and it's kind of like, this is one of the he can't, what she's doing to him, he can't come back at her about. So this is now going to come up later in his, in how he deals with his partner or how he deals with his daughter. This need to now regain the masculinity that got snatched from you to fill in that humiliation is now going to toxically impact how you feel about women. A dude gets called a sissy by his mother his entire life, and then his partner calls him a bitch ass, and then it's like, no, you were not supposed to punch your partner across the room, but half of that punch was directed at when his mother called him a sissy. You see what I'm saying? This is built up shit. This is built up anger. So it's like when you look at some of this, you kind of have to, not to excuse the person, but you kind of have to look at what are the elements that led to this, and how do we change the narrative, and how do we change our contribution to the narrative?
How do we change our contribution to the narrative? Yes. Yes. And yeah, you're right. I mean, this doesn't excuse anyone's behavior. We are responsible for ourselves, for our bodies, and for the way we act and react to certain situations. But I think you're also right that none of these things happen in a vacuum. This is capital T trauma. This is why we should all be in therapy. This is why we should be encouraging our boys to speak, to say what they want, to play with whatever damn doll they want, to get rid of this ridiculous idea of what a male and female should be, these roles that have been, cemented in our brains as society of what a man and a woman should be doing for a job and out in society. Let's get rid of that shit and holding people accountable and go go to therapy, okay? Go work out your shit and teach your boys how to express themselves. If every time a boy cries and we tell boys not to cry, well then how are they ever going to learn how to deal with their emotions? We have some really good comments in the chat. I almost said comments in the comment box. I'm getting there, guys. Rachel said I have a conference call, so she can't stay, but she would please rebroadcast. She says, love all the education going on. Shy the Witness, love that. They said, is mystery secret or sacred? That is a really good question. Is mystery secret or sacred? I guess it depends on the mystery. I guess it depends like what we're talking about.
It's actually like this.
Mm-hmm.
We had spirituals that were coded language.
Mm.
That was a mystery that saved our asses.
Sure the hell did.
The overseer just saw a bunch of Negroes picking cotton and singing about a blackbird. It never occurred to him that that was a warning. The sun's in his face. If you're gonna make a run for it, run now. So were they supposed to be upright and were they supposed to be upright and yelling, "Run, motherfucker"? I mean, it should have been like in Sweetback's badass song, "Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water, run, motherfucker." That's how they do it in the movie. I'm like, so
Run,
that is, so we're gonna be straightforward, so that was part of the mystery, secret and sacred. Yes, that was secret and sacred. Me getting the fuck up off the plantation and through the swamp, that was the mystery, and that was the secret and the sacred all in one. All in one swell foop. Yep.
Get the fuck up out of here. Tara said, "Hey, what's up, Tara?" Um, Jessica Mendez said, "Deep." I think she's talking about our deep ass conversation. Otherwise, it's inappropriate. I couldn't help myself, Jess. I'm so sorry. Michelle Smith said, "Indeed, nurturing is important. Damn sure is." And Jessica said, "Wow, such a vicious cycle." Yes. I love my therapist. She saves me on a weekly basis. Yes, therapy is amazing. And Shy the Witness said again, we are predisposed. I swear to God, I was an English major. We are predisposed because of the industrial lifestyle. Ooh, that is interesting. Because of the industrial lifestyle. Because when, I guess when men went off to war, us women were, building shit. And, well, I guess like when they came home, we had to, you're right. When they came home, we had to like go back to the kitchen and then they took those jobs. And from now on, that's just what women do. Men go out and make shit and make the money, and women stay home and take care of the children. Have you ever stayed home and take care of children? I don't understand why we. No, is the answer.
I have. I can say I have.
It is a different kind of job, man. It is.
I have. Here's the product sitting right here.
Right?
So anyway,
that's a big baby. Your baby got
I've
a
done
full
it,
baby.
but yeah. My baby's 6'2". So what can I say?
It's a big ass baby, bro.
Oh man.
So another thing,
but
those of you.
But no, it
No,
I was
please
gonna
do.
say it's the interesting thing also when we in this country, and it was specifically something that I used to encounter being the director of Black Studies, was the fact that we oftentimes did not look at the real intersectionality when we looked at womanism versus feminism. And the fact that feminism is a white woman thing. Feminism is
Yes,
about
yes, the
white
fuck it is.
women's concerns,
Sorry.
and feminism is about white women issues and white women economy. And what would forever happen is I would get one of our young children who was coming through the Women and Gender Studies program, who would stand up and make a report. And I would say, did you cross-reference those based on race? And of course, the answer would be no. And I said, great. Cross-reference those statistics about education, about rate of pay, about entry into the workforce, about entry into corporate America, who can get into corporate America, and you'll see that the numbers are remarkably different when we change the ethnicity. That Black women have historically always been able to get into places that Black men could not. At Macy's, up until the 1950s, if you were Black, you needed a bachelor's degree to run the elevator at Macy's.
He said elevator. You heard that right. He said elevator. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
If you saw a Black man working in an office, chances are he was better educated and better equipped than any of the white people around him, and was 9 times out of 10 the guy training the young white executives coming in to then become his bosses. Now, the likelihood, you were 20 times as likely to see a Black woman in that position as you were to see a Black man.
Mm-hmm.
Historically, a Black woman with a high school diploma could get into the same position as a Black man with a master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
This situation did not change until the 1970s. But this is where we have the cross intersection, because what is it? Women are non-threatening. Y'all were the white man's rape victim, so of course he's going to let you in the office. Now he can grab your ass easier. You're non-threatening, woman, so I can let you in. Of course he's not going to let my big old Black ass up in there. He's scared of me. Plus, he's afraid I'm going to be grabbing the white women's asses the same way he's grabbing your ass. So he's not going to let me up in there. You know, these are the games that are played repeatedly, constantly.
How do we break these cycles? Other than, I guess forming our own idea of feminism for the Black woman, how 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 do we combat this?
It it's not our own idea, it's our own reality.
Mm-hmm.
It's when we start to explore and examine our own realities. When I think of Sister Bell Hooks, this was about exploring and examining our own reality. When I think of Angela Davis, this was about exploring and examining our own reality. It wasn't about how am I, because the thing is, this is part of the white supremacy game. We're always taught to somehow find the Black version of the white norm instead of
Ooh.
finding our own version of us. We even think about it in terms of they had Life magazine, so we have Ebony. And of course, that's a step. That is a nano step. They have Harvard, so we have Howard. That's a nano step. But then when we start to completely have our own, when we start to have, the Third World Institute, et cetera, that was something that came and went in the 1970s. When we have stuff like that, like literally our own higher academic institutions, the Tunde Village, when we have our own academic institutions of higher education and develop our own, and when we stop basing validation on their point of view, that's when we move forward. Because here's a little secret: when they start talking about the first Black and the first Black and the first Black, that's a step forward that they made, not us. We didn't make that step forward.
I hate
The
that shit.
number of times, the number of times, I'm sorry, the number of times I've actually said, you know what, niggas could have been running this company for the last 100 years. You hired most of them though as like cleaning crew. So the fact that you hired a Black manager means that you smartened up. Doesn't have a damn thing to do
With
with
the
you
smart
found,
Black people already
but
there doing the work.
they try to act like we finally found a Black person qualified to do this.
That shit drives me nuts. Every time I see the first Black person, like engineer, the first Black person, like flying a 747, it drives me absolutely nuts. First of all,
When I
in 400 years, 200 years, 150 years, there hasn't been one Black person who's capable of doing these jobs. I don't want your fucking first Black person. Get out of the way and let me do my work.
Well, like I said, that's them patting themselves on the back. We finally moved forward. Yes, we finally arrived.
Okay, let's pivot a little bit. So I have a question about you performing, because you do a lot of performance, different kind of performing. Um, is there a stage that you want to perform on, a stage you want to step on, a stage you want to just drop your shit on that you haven't yet? Is there like a dream stage of yours, existing or not existing?
I want to do a Coliseum in Greece.
Oh my god! Like
just
the ruins
because
of the Colosseum.
And allow me to say, it's not because of any classical sense of, oh, this would be validating. Nah, the acoustics are fucking ill.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
I mean, to go up in the Coliseum, and bump some 808, that would be the shit.
Yes. I want to go in the Coliseum and hear somebody. That's what the fuck I want to hear.
That you went up and did some trap jazz up in the Coliseum. That we went up in the Coliseum and did "Do You Mind If We Dance With Your Dates?" Go up in the go up in the Coliseum and sing, "I want to funk you, I'ma funk you like you owe me money." You know, I'm like, that's the shit I want to do.
Yes. Yes. That sounds boss, man. That sounds really cool. And you're right, the acoustics must be fucking, oh my God.
Oh man. Oh
So
man.
you are an educator. For those of you who don't know, Walim is an educator. Um, as an educator, would you suggest that a student try in efforts to grow as an artist, a year studying their craft in school or a year traveling abroad? But you can only have either or. Which one would you suggest for an artist who's just trying to find their way?
It's what are they starting from?
Zero. Let's say like they're just found out that like music is what they're supposed to do or writing is what they're supposed to do. They just figured that part of themselves out. Where should they go from there?
Hmm. Whichever place would waste less of their parents' money.
Okay. Whichever would be most fiscally responsible.
Yeah, whichever one would be the best ROI. Because I'm like, if you just find discovering music, maybe a year of school of music might be a waste because you might go through and, you know, pull a Denise Huxtable on them and some shit like that, you know, and like, you
Did
know,
you
have your parents home
just
singing,
say?
I'm gonna have a little talk with Jesus.
Yo, he just said pull a Denise Huxtable. That just happened. We gonna hold on to that. Those who know, you know. That shit is funny as hell.
She, she's like, I mean, let's face it. She's like the definitive A student fuck up that we could, you know.
We thought she had it. We thought she had it.
She's the archetype. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I want to know this. When you write a song, what do you hear first, the vocals or the words? Like when you're writing a song, what comes to you first? The vocals or like the sound? Sorry, I didn't mean to say words.
It depends on the song.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I've had a groove first and the words came to me later. And sometimes I had an idea for a song and everything grew out of that idea. Like one time, I remember the very first time I decided I was actually doing an experiment where I was blending a dance hall rhythm with a punk rock surfer rhythm. And
Did
I
you
put
say
the
a
beats
punk rock
together.
surfer song? Is that what you said?
Some surfer rhythm, yeah. Yeah,
That's
I'm a closet punk rocker for people who don't know.
Yeah, punk rock music is the shit. It's the bass for me. You know, it's just that the
Well,
like that reverberating bass. I'm in
well,
it.
people don't realize, and actually, well, Tara would be a little young, but she could co-sign. There was a stretch there where hip hop and punk rock were in the same clubs in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you end up with the Beastie Boys, who were originally a punk band, suddenly becoming then a hip hop act, you know. And why
Mm-hmm.
you had Africa Bambaataa and Grandmaster Flash spinning in punk clubs,
That's
you know.
insane, man.
So you know, but yes, but so I had the groove, and then I put this together. This is back when I lived in New Bedford. I had a studio in my attic, and then I put this groove together, and I go downstairs to watch TV because I couldn't think of words. You know, it's like those shows that come on at 2 a.m. It was a talk show, and it was all these plus size women who were on this show, and these women are like gorgeous. They're a little chubby, but they're gorgeous, and they're crying about how they're big and there's no man who wants them. I'm like, oh, you're just talking to the wrong men. And
Sure
then
are.
and then bam, the song, and then the song, "Them Big Girls" was born. And so I, you know, watching that show, I'm sitting there writing, you know, about big girls. I'm looking at this thing like, damn. I'm like, instead of having these women crying on TV, why don't you like flash their phone numbers or some shit? You know what I'm saying? But anyway, you know, so
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm like, this is just, It's just wrong. It's just wrong. You're gonna have this whole panel full. You're gonna have this whole panel full of these plus size beauties crying about how they can't find men. And you got men at home watching the TV like, damn.
Girl, you don't even know.
You got us. You
Listen.
got us at home. You got us at home singing the song from Charlotte's Web. Affair is a veritable smorgasbord, but
Better stop playing out here walking around like a whole ass snack. You better stop playing, girl.
but yeah, so that was one where the music came first. The same is true with "Do You Mind If We Dance With Your Dates?" How that song actually got written on stage. We were playing at the Cabbie Shack in Plymouth, and we had a few minutes left before it was break time, so we were just playing a funky blues groove, and just instrumental to fill out time. And there were a whole bunch of drunk women on the dance floor, and their husbands were at the bar watching the game. And this one started grinding on our bass player. Peace and blessings to the late great Christopher Sweeting. But they're grinding, and all of a sudden her husband jumps up from the bar, and in like total punk ass fashion comes running out and like plants himself between his wife and Chris and starts like as if he's dancing. And I realize it's to herd her away. Now, Chris was like 60-something years old, gray hair, about this big, and you're gonna be worried about this dude, Well, actually, yeah, I come to think of it, I probably would have been worried about Chris. So scratch that whole thing. Chris probably would have taken his wife home and like fucked her 5 ways. Anyway, no, like, dude probably figured this out too. Anyway, so he jumps in between, and so I look him dead in his eye, and I just start singing the line from Animal House. Do you mind if we dance with your dates? And just kind of wrote the song from there.
I have been there. Yeah, I get it. 2 more questions, and then we're gonna get up out of here. I had a lot more questions for you. Maybe we can do like a part 2.
Actually, you were. I was gonna say you were there when 2 of my songs got written.
I was.
Yeah, 2 of the songs that are because Your Daddy Don't Know, which is on the next Groovalato album, was written at the Governor Bradford.
P-Town? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was like the first or second night.
Yeah. So it was like.
You heard what he said? I was there. Just so you guys know. Like, he said that. You heard him say it. So, there. I don't know what the there is, but I feel it. And that's all that counts. Yeah.
There we are.
Damn, I want to... You know what? Fuck it. So, I have a scenario for you. You're on an elevator on the 30th floor. And you're trying to get down to the first floor. You get on the elevator, and you see that there are 31 buttons. The 31st button says, do not touch in red. Do you touch the button? 30th floor. You're up top. And then there's a button that says, do not touch. The button has no more explanations. You have no idea what this button does. Do you press the button?
Where am I on my way to?
You're on your way down to the ground floor. Let's say you're going home.
Oh, the hell no, I'm not touching the button.
Because you have no idea. If it says you're on a 30th floor, bro, like, no, I'm not pressing the button. I had a theory about...
I've watched enough I've watched enough episodes of Fargo and Breaking Bad to know that white people are some sick motherfuckers. And if they have a button in an office building that says "Do not touch,"
don't touch it. Leave it the fuck alone. Leave it the fuck alone.
You see the gray hair? You see the gray hair in this beard? You don't get that from doing dumb shit.
You were so right. You were so right. because you ain't gonna make it.
There are a lot of young, handsome, dead motherfuckers right now because they'd have pushed that button. But me, no. I'm
Yeah. I have a picture of James Dean in my room because I just think he's so handsome. Also, super dead. He pushed the red button.
there you
Around that
go.
corner. Can't fly.
There you go.
Can't fly.
There you go.
Last question for you. And I'd really like to do a part 2 because I have so many more questions and I feel like you have so much more lessons to give.
Cool. Let's do a part 2. We can do an all music one.
Sweet. My last question for you is you do a lot. You do. Sorry, I'm a child. You do a lot of community advocacy. Do you think that activists should
every morning around 9:43, sometimes
you
at 8:20.
Oh, y'all know I got a regular proof. Drink that coffee and I got to go.
It depends on what I ate the night before. You know, sometimes if it's one of those particularly like gassy, like, you know, I went to a cookout and like indulged on a little too much corn. Well, then, you know.
Yeah, corn be hitting.
Oh, that's not what the question was. That's not what the question was about. I'm sorry, my bad.
I went on that ride with you. Like, I gotta pay attention. So you do a lot of community advocacy. Do you think that activists should be paid for their social justice work?
Well, one, we're not activists, we're organizers.
Mm-hmm.
Activist is more of like a temporary, that's like an upstart. That's like, you know, that has like a carpetbagger overtone. I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna start some shit, fuck some shit up and leave before, you know. Being an activist is the person who farts in an elevator and leaves. That's you know, or organizers, on the other hand, yes, should very definitely be paid for what they do, because organizers are people of the community, in the community, for the community, doing the community work. Yes, that's an organizer. Yeah. You know, like our two sisters who are in, I can't see the chat, but our two sisters were in the chat, Rachel and Tara, those are organizers.
Yes, they are.
You know, those are socially conscious organizers. Their work is ongoing. It's work that they have been doing, work that they are doing, work that they will be doing. And hopefully, as the impact of their work spreads, they won't have to do that work as much. You know, and I can see changes and differences happening through what they're doing. That's organizing. You know.
So I feel good. Like, I feel like I learned a lot today. I hope you guys learned a lot. We're not done with this lesson. He has agreed to a part 2, so we will let you know when that will happen. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Mwalim. As always, we learned a lot. As always, you shared your knowledge in such a way that we all understand.
I will shine a light. Now you can see me. See, my sole purpose for having this lighter is so that you can see me.
Mwalim Daphunkee Professor is a storyteller, performer, musician, writer, media artist, keynote speaker, language arts curator. He does everything. Make sure you follow him on his social media. Here are his Facebook and Instagram. Make sure you follow him and thank him for the knowledge we had today.
I'm gonna let it shine.
Oh, I don't have a lighter. Oh, I got you. Oh, I didn't do the bottle. My bad, guys.
We are the world.
The bottle I got for Mwalim today is this thing here. It's a feather, and then the background is broken. It looks like stone, and that's what a lot of your work reminds me of, because it's so heavy that regardless of how it's distributed, it's always groundbreaking. So this is for you. Thank you.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. All right, guys. You have a fabulous weekend. Remember, hurt people. So keep an eye on your pain. Stay safe. Godspeed. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Mwalim. Yay. All right, you guys have a great night. Remember, go Yankees.